Halo Infinite Season 4 has been out for roughly 24 hours at the time of recording this, and in today's video I want to give my overall thoughts on what I've experienced with this season so far, and to just provide my overall opinion in whether or not I think it's worth jumping into. Anyway, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new here, as I really do appreciate it and it really does help the channel out. Anyway, without wasting any more of your time, let's jump straight in. Of course, I kicked off the season by making my usual Halo Infinite shop video, and in that I covered the latest cosmetics on the store, in the HCS store, and also spoke about a few other things like the new cadet coatings. In regards to the shop itself, prices do seem to be higher, however that does kind of make sense because the quality of the content in these bundles also seems a lot higher. Even if I don't necessarily like some of the newer armors, the fact that you actually finally get the coatings for every core, the chest pieces are coloured, even the wrist attachments and utility pieces all seem much better overall. I do understand the higher price points to a degree, but from the average consumer perspective, I do think some of these are still a bit too high. The fact that we have an armor set that costs 1,600 I do think is kind of insane, and although I'm not saying the content there isn't necessarily worth it, I just think that pricing is pretty wild. There is a few other things before we actually talk about the gameplay stuff that's worth touching on. Like I mentioned briefly, we have the new cadet coatings, which I think is a nice addition, especially for people that aren't spending any money in the game. The fact that we finally have access to a few more basic colours is nice to see, and even the default hazmat coating is actually on every core, which was also a nice addition. And obviously everyone gets that new hazmat core for free anyway, which is also pretty cool to see. The season didn't launch with an event, which was a little disappointing. Season 2 and Season 3 both launched with one, so to see Season 4, like, we have to wait until next Tuesday for the first event was just kind of weird. And yes, everyone's probably already noticed by now or seen the tweet, there was no narrative cutscenes, which considering Season 3 actually started to make things really interesting as far as the multiplayer narrative goes, this was really disappointing. The new Battle Pass itself seems pretty cool, the purchase bonuses are definitely a nice addition. I actually love how the new AR weapon model looks, and the armor coating you get is also pretty cool. And overall, a lot of the content within the Battle Pass is pretty nice. There's some cool free cosmetics, there's some cool premium cosmetics. I'm a big fan of a lot of the shoulder pads, chest pieces, etc., even if I'm not the biggest fan of most of the new helmets. That being said though, the new Mark 6 helmet for the Hazmat core that you get at like tier 5 is actually awesome. Easily my favourite helmet for that core already, and you get it straight away. As far as new game modes go, we have Infection, and although that is it, I think Infection is pretty solid. I do have my fair share of issues with it though, and that mostly stems down to some of the weapon spawns and some of the maps in the playlist. I mean, Infection in pretty much every other Halo game does end up just becoming a game of people camping. It's mostly just make sure you've got plenty of spare ammo and then hide in a corner for the rest of the match, somewhere where it's very hard for the infected to actually get to you unless there is a very large wave of them. And I do wish there was a bit more of an incentive to keep people to stay on the move, because it does just and I really do wish there was a bit more of an incentive to keep players on the move, as every match does feel like it just results in people just camping in a certain spot in the map. Whether that be the vent section in Aquarius, or just one of the random corners in Recharge, or in the big tunnel system in Behemoth. And although yes, you could argue the lack of ammo that you spawn with is the incentive to keep moving, at the same time it feels like it's relatively easy to acquire more ammo. I mean, if you go up to a single ammo box, it basically gets you fully stacked on ammunition anyway, and most of the time you spawn by various other weapons anyway. In fact, in some of the maps there's mounted turrets, which have full ammo, which is insane, and that's definitely not fun to play against. So I do think stuff like that needs to be looked into a little bit with Infection, as it just makes it a very unfun experience for the starting infected. I do like some of the changes they've made to the maps though, having the stuff like the barricades. I know that isn't necessarily something new or specific to Infinite, but seeing stuff like that added to the maps is really fun to see. And of most of the maps that come out when the game launched, seeing them have the other areas unlocked and you can now explore those parts in an official playlist is also a very nice touch. It's very cool actually exploring these back streets on streets. It does make it much more enjoyable for Infection specifically. We do also have two new pieces of equipment which are present in Infection, one of which is the Quantum Translocator. This is a new piece of power equipment and it's pretty fun to use. It can be used quite strategically too, although I still haven't quite gotten the hang of it yet myself, and all beta infected actually spawn with this. The alpha infected spawn with the Shroud screen. And there is also the Threat Seeker, but this is basically just the competitive version of the Threat Sensor. I haven't really used it properly yet, but there's not really too much to say about this. I have actually had the chance to try out the new map Forest twice, but both times were in Infection, so I haven't experienced it in a proper arena setting yet. But from what I've played, the map is absolutely gorgeous. It definitely suits Infection pretty well, and overall is one of the best looking Halo maps we've ever had, and might be the best looking map in Infinite. Although, despite the fact I've played Big Team Battle a couple of times, I've not had the chance to actually play the new BTB map, Scar, which is pretty unfortunate because I'm looking forward to trying that out. There is a few other things that have been added to the game now, like you can actually access the ray tracing sun and shadows on Xbox now, which was cool to see. It doesn't feel like it makes a huge difference by any means, but it is one that I appreciate. We also have the addition of the progression system. It seems like your XP is completely score based. The amount of score you get is the amount of XP you get. And although it's nice having a progression system, I'll be completely honest, I'm not really enjoying it because there's nothing you really earn. Sure, there's a few emblems, but these don't really feel like fulfilling rewards. I find it very interesting considering there is various shoulder pads, armor coatings, visors, etc. that have not been released and have been in the file since season 1 or 2. So it does make me wonder why 343 didn't decide to just chuck some of those within the progression system. Even if visors aren't exactly a super exciting reward, having something that links to your spawn and your customization, something that really symbolises rank other than just a little tag next to your nameplate, I think would have been a really nice touch, and not having any form of cosmetic reward other than emblems is really disappointing. I really hope that 343 does actually change the mind and add some form of cosmetic unlocks to the progression system, as I believe that's something they should still realistically be able to do. But right now I am a little disappointed and underwhelmed with the progression system. I think that sums up pretty much everything I've experienced so far within my first day of Season 4. But do I think the update is worth jumping into? Although for most of this video I've sounded like I've been a little disappointed, I have had a lot of fun with it. Infection, despite the issues I have with it, is a very enjoyable and refreshing mode to play. It's much more of a casual experience most of the time, and it's definitely enjoyable with friends. Although I do wish I could just have a full lobby of 12 players going into Infection. It is a little underwhelming that you can only queue with 4. At the same time, Infection is a hell of a lot of fun. I think if you haven't played Halo Infinite for quite some time, I'd argue it's at least worth trying out the new update. There is an event next week, so if you wanted to wait just a couple more days and try things out when there's an actual event going on, then maybe just do that. I do think the update itself has made a lot of positive changes. I haven't experienced too many bugs, and I know a lot of bugs have been fixed. The game still does have its issues, and yes, there is still many features and modes that I wish were here. But this season so far has been pretty solid within the first day, and I'm very curious to see where they'll take things throughout the rest of the season. Anyway, if you've played Season 4 of Halo Infinite, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one.